Ah, Timmy.
You ready, Timmy?
Timmy!
Allegedly, he is living a lie.
Live loud, Timmy!
But is he? Timmy Birch wasn't introduced until season 4 of South Park, but he instantly made a huge splash and is easily one of the fandom's favorite characters in the show. I think it would be easy to expect South Park to make the handicapped kid a punchline, but on the contrary, Timmy is an incredibly well-rounded and well-respected character by both fans and the other characters in the show. And though he maybe doesn't get as much focus as he did previously, he remains easily one of the most popular. So today, let's explore the ins and outs of South Park's Timmy Birch. So obviously I am a huge fan of animation as a medium, and that's one of the reasons I'm so stoked about today's sponsor, Storyverse. Storyverse is an incredibly cool new app that combines animated shorts with narrative-written short stories. It's sort of an evolutionary offshoot of comics or graphic novels, a new read plus watch format for those who love good story and animations. Storyverse basically works with creative writers and pairs them up with different animators, which gives each story a very unique vibe. Since they work with different animators, there is a ton of variety in the art styles, 2D, 3D, anime influenced, in a variety of genres like action, sci-fi, fantasy, comedy, etc. There is something for everyone, and each story is exclusive to Storyverse. I've loved a ton of stories on the app, but so far my favorite is Blood Moon Curse, which has a really suspenseful and mysterious hook, but also has some super cool stylized 3D animation. These scenes are so atmospheric, and use such a cool combination of texture over vibrant colors. There are some wildly unique sequences. The story follows a group of college students who receive some spooky, deadly predictions through their fortune cookies, which is a story that is way up my alley. Storyverse is available for download on the App Store and Google Play for free. Give them a follow at Storyverse for upcoming trailers and behind-the-scenes content, and check out all the cool new stories their platform has to offer. And if you check it out, please comment below with your favorite stories. Again, that's Storyverse. Check it out today. Timmy was first introduced in a pretty small bit part of Season 4's premiere, Tooth Fairy's Tats 2000, initially to help try and pull Kenny's tooth out for the boys' Tooth Fairy scheme. Matt and Trey say on the DVD commentary that they had to really fight with Comedy Central for Timmy's inclusion, that the network was incredibly worried about backlash.
You know, our defense was, and it still is with Timmy and people who have problems with characters like that, is we think of Timmy and the boys think of Timmy as a full-fledged human being. And he's not bummed out, and they're not ripping on him for his disability, and he's just part of the fun, really.
And I think Matt and Trey's rationale in this counter-argument is exactly why Timmy is such a beloved and celebrated character. Sure, his handicap is the subject of storylines and jokes, and his mannerisms and catchphrases are used as punchlines sometimes, but Timmy himself is never the joke. He's a real character. He's a real part of this world who is accepted and not ignored. And later in Season 4, they properly introduce him in the episode Timmy 2000, an episode that sort of reconciles with this very idea by having Timmy become the lead singer of a band called Lords of the Underworld. There are basically two reactions to Timmy's inclusion in the band in this episode. The people who think him singing in this band is rad as hell and rock out to their dope music, and the people who think that his inclusion in the band is a form of ridicule.
Dude, that handicap dude rules! Yeah! You guys are terrible. How can you laugh at that poor kid?
And I think these two reactions basically represent Matt and Trey's point of view in how they use Timmy as a character, and the network's point of view in how they wanted to prevent them from showing him at all. In this episode, Timmy gets to do something super cool, and people think he's great at it. He's treated like a real person. But there are these other people who think he's being used like a prop. But their alternative is just that he doesn't get to do these things because of their own perceptions that he is being used, as though he doesn't have any autonomy. Like the network's initial stance, they would just rather handicapped characters and people be ignored and pushed to the margins, because in their mind, Timmy being the lead singer of a band isn't something people could possibly be taking seriously, ironically making them the ones who are othering Timmy. And in South Park in general, the kids just see Timmy as one of them, and they see what he's doing in this episode as rad as hell.
How would you like to be handicapped? Do you think that would be funny? You're making him feel bad.
He looks pretty happy to me.
Oh, you people make me sick.
And Timmy even has his own little arc in this episode with his bandmate Skylar. Though he's manipulated by Phil Collins, Skylar gets jealous that the focus is all put on Timmy and taken off the Lords of the Underworld. But by the end of the episode, not only do they make up and play Lollabaloola, but Timmy, known for only saying one thing, says something new specifically for Skylar.
Timmy! And Lords of the Underworld!
Though he struggles to convey it through his disability, Timmy is shown to be a character who really understands those around him. He's a fully realized character, and new verbalizations are often used to showcase things Timmy really cares about. We'll talk about more instances of this as the video goes on, but the most important takeaway from this very first Timmy-focused episode is how much the other kids care about him as a person, and that they don't like seeing him pushed to the margins.
The people that are wrong are the ones that think people like Timmy should be protected and kept out of the public's eye. The cool thing about Timmy being in a band was that he was in your face, and you had to deal with him.
And throughout season 4, Timmy gets a pretty substantial focus in the series, in large part due to the massive fan reaction to him. But the kids' relation to Timmy largely reflects what was established in this episode. He's either just part of the gang, treated like any other kid, or the kids are standing up for Timmy because the world is treating him unfairly, or because they're genuinely worried about him as a friend. This is particularly explored in the aptly titled Do the Handicapped Go to Hell? In this one, Father Maxie essentially uses fear-mongering tactics to make the kids all terrified of going to hell, believing that they have to confess every one of their sins or they're doomed to burn. And while they're worried about themselves, they're especially worried about Timmy.
Poor Timmy's gonna go to hell. He can't confess his sins because all he can say is his name.
Timmy!
Oh man, we can't let Timmy go to hell. We have to do something.
When the world treats Timmy like a burden or tries to write him off, the kids double down in their attempts to include him. It's pretty great. Timmy gets a couple more major features across season 4, including in the episode where the kids all graduate from 3rd grade into 4th grade. The entire class hates their new teacher and wants to go back in time so they can go back to 3rd grade. They work with some college-age dorks to develop a time machine out of Timmy's wheelchair, which ends up putting him in a total speed situation. You know the movie.
I think it was called The Bus That Couldn't Slow Down.
Timmy's chair is moving steadily down the highway with a ticking time bomb on board, and everyone drops everything to try and disarm it until...
Hey, it did work!
Time travel is actually relatively common in South Park. The future people come back in time, the boys change the timeline in the post-COVID specials, a new kid farts through time in Fractured But Whole, but Timmy was actually the first to do it.
Dude, it looks like he's been all over time. He must have such cool stuff to tell us.
Damn it.
Timmy gets the spotlight one last time in season 4, and I mean spotlight quite literally as he's the star of the 4th grade play, Helen Keller the Musical. This is one of the best Timmy episodes as they do such a great job conveying his emotions and story arc within his limited dialogue. Timmy picks out a specific turkey to use in the play, one that seems to be the runt of the litter and one that the farmer was planning to kill. Timmy connects to this turkey and names him Gobbles.
His name is Gobbles.
Garbage!
Cartman wants to replace Gobbles with a theater turkey, but Timmy won't let them abandon Gobbles. It's also really cool that Timmy is literally the lead in this play. Though there's the obvious parallel of the handicapped kid playing Helen Keller, the kids are actually worried in this episode because Timmy is the only one who knows the part, and if they replace Gobbles, he won't do the play. He's literally integral to the play. He is not replaceable. Timmy works so hard the entire episode to train Gobbles for the show, it's honestly really touching. The training and bedtime scenes are really sweet. I love when South Park tugs at the heartstrings, which they do even more when the theater turkey's trainer lies and manipulates Timmy into freeing Gobbles, which gives us a full-on Air Bud type get out of here scene.
Garbage! Timmy, garbage?
Eventually, Timmy bails on the play, realizing that his connection with Gobbles was more important, saving him from hunters and even making it back in time to wow the entire audience with the trick he taught Gobbles.
Oh, wow!
In just the first season that Timmy was introduced, they tread a lot of ground with his character. He got so much focus just within 13 episodes. But the following season, they introduced a new character that would change his dynamic significantly.
Jimmy?
In Season 5's episode Cripple Fight, South Park introduces another beloved handicapped character, Jimmy Vollmer. Initially, Jimmy is introduced as a one-off character who is meant to be a sort of foil and rival to Timmy. The entire episode is pretty focused on Timmy's jealousy and insecurity about the kind of attention that Jimmy is receiving.
Jimmy's funny, dude. Yeah, well, he's the coolest kid with disabilities in the world.
Timmy fully resents Jimmy for sweeping the South Park kids off their feet, and it's understandable. He makes one good impression and the boys can't shut up about him.
And best of all, we met this kid named Jimmy. He's disabled, but he doesn't let it ruin his life. He's awesome.
On top of this, Jimmy's stand-up routine and impressions do take aim at Timmy, which doesn't help matters.
Timmy!
Timmy! I'm living a lie! I'm living a lie! Timmy!
Timmy actually goes out of his way to try and harm Jimmy, like actually tries to kill him by giving him Kenny's jacket, after which he narrowly avoids multiple near-death situations. This is really the first time we see Timmy do anything bad towards another kid in the show as well, which I actually think also speaks to Matt and Trey's insistence that he is just a real regular character and not some prop. They aren't putting sanitized representation on screen. He's a fully realized character with flaws and insecurities. Jimmy and Timmy get in a full-on fight in a near beat-for-beat parody of the film They Live, and though Jimmy apologizes to Timmy at the end and claims that they're best friends now, Timmy actually ends up photoshopping Jimmy onto some lewd photos to get him kicked out of the Scouts. It seemed like this was supposed to be the last we ever saw of Jimmy, but like Timmy, he ended up being a beloved character and really took off with the fan base. So they decided to keep him around, sort of ignoring the ending of Cripple Fight and making Jimmy and Timmy great pals moving forward. And while Jimmy is also an amazing character, I do think that to a degree, Timmy started to take a back seat to Jimmy after his introduction. From here on out, most episodes that really feature Timmy are often featuring Timmy and Jimmy as a duo. There are exceptions, including some where they're both used really well in different ways in the same episode, and one where Timmy is the main focus completely separate of Jimmy, but so many Timmy episodes after Jimmy's introduction are actually just about the pair of them. Not to say that this is wholly negative, they are a great duo, and they're featured in some great episodes, but it does feel like they used to do a ton of great creative storytelling for Timmy when they didn't have Jimmy to rely on for dialogue. But some of these episodes are truly great. Crazy Cripples, where Jimmy and Timmy start a club called the Crips, only to unwittingly join the gang the Crips in the process, is super funny. Just by being genuine and caring, the pair get the Crips and Bloods to forgive each other, all with a simple lock-in at the rec center. Other episodes where they make a great duo are Crippled Summer, where we see the misadventures the pair get up to at their summer camp, though it mostly focuses on Nathan's hatred of Jimmy. This is also the case for season 21's Moss Piglets, where Jimmy and Timmy team up for the science fair, completely overshadowing Nathan's volcano project with their tardigrade experiment. But there is one episode that explores Jimmy and Timmy's friendship so beautifully without feeling like Timmy is just along for the ride, and that is Up the Down Steroid. In this episode, both Jimmy and Timmy are training for the Special Olympics, but after a little peer pressure from Nathan, Jimmy decides to start taking steroids. This is another episode that does a great job conveying Timmy's struggle, this time being at odds with his best friend after he realizes that Jimmy has been taking steroids.
Timmy! Timmy! Jimmy! Timmy! Timmy! Don't lecture me on the complexities of sportsmanship.
This puts Timmy in the unenviable position of having to decide whether or not he narcs on his friend or lets him continue to hurt himself with those steroids. He tries to tell Mr. Mackey what's going on, but Mackey is just completely incapable of understanding Timmy, unlike the other kids and Jimmy.
Timmy! 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 Timmy!
At the end of the episode, at the Special Olympics, Jimmy wins every event he's entered in, and then calls out Cartman for pretending to be handicapped to compete. But in turn, Timmy gets on stage and calls Jimmy out for cheating as well.
Timmy!
Oh my god. You're right, Timmy. You're totally right.
Putting them at odds with each other was a great way to give both Jimmy and Timmy an intertwined but still separate story arc in this episode. Whereas in so many of the other Jimmy-Timmy episodes, they sort of go through the motions in tandem. And this is the first and really only time they've been at odds since Cripple Fight. But even though we've gotten limited Timmy-centric storylines in the years since Jimmy's introduction, Timmy's presence has remained constant. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Timmy is always treated as a fully fledged member of the cast, not just like some kind of inclusion token. There are some instances where it's made clear that the kids are making sure Timmy can be included.
We can help Timmy learn how to ice skate too.
And this is because the kids want to play with Timmy, and so Timmy is just generally included. He plays Lord of the Rings with the gang in Return of the Fellowship to the Two Towers. He takes part in the metrosexual trend that sweeps South Park.
Ooh, Timmy!
He's with the group that wants to help free Wilsiacs. He plays World of Warcraft with everyone.
You can count on us.
Timmy!
He's seen playing football with the entire gang in The Death of Eric Cartman, and basketball as well in Obama Wins. And to me, this is one of the reasons South Park has some of the best handicap representation in media. It's very rare that Timmy's handicap is the focus of an episode or story, and usually when it is, it's to make these exact points, like in Timmy 2000. But usually, he's just doing something the kids are doing, like when he's the lead in the play in Helen Keller the Musical, or when he and Jimmy are doing groundbreaking tardigrade experiments in Moss Piglets. Timmy 2000 2000 wasn't even the only time he ventured into music. He was the singer in the band featured at the Comedy Awards in Funny Bot.
First annual Comedy Award.
The most recent entirely Timmy-focused episode we've gotten was all the way back in Season 18's Handy Car, one of the only times Timmy gets the spotlight separate from Jimmy since Jimmy's introduction. In this one, to raise money for summer camp, Timmy starts a rideshare business called Handy Car. He basically uses his wheelchair to zip people around South Park. Not only does he start a successful business, he successfully expands that business into an entire company with tons of other drivers, and then manages to beat every other competitor out in the first wacky races in decades.
It looks like Handy Car has done it!
He beats Lyft, Zipcar, regular old taxis, Dick Dastardly, and of course, Elon Musk, who resorts to buying Handy Car so that he doesn't get shown up by the company. Throwing money at someone else's invention is pretty typical Musk behavior, let's be honest. That's real musky. Timmy could have been set for life, but he actually ends up donating his entire $2.3 billion fortune from Handy Car to his summer camp to ensure that his friends can have a great summer. But though this was the last real fully Timmy-focused episode of the series, this isn't necessarily the last Timmy-focused story. Timmy is a major part of the superhero narrative in Fractured But Whole. He's actually the only character in South Park with two superhero personas. In the original superhero trilogy, he's Iron Maiden, an indestructible metal character. And then, in the Fractured But Whole, he's a Professor X-inspired character named Dr. Timothy, and the leader of the Freedom Pals, one of the two rival superhero teams. In fact, his entire story as Dr. Timothy says a lot about how much his friends love and respect him. Within the narrative of their game, Dr. Timothy is easily one of the most powerful characters. His mind powers can take over any other character to do his bidding, and later in the game, he even grants you the ability to play as any class you want. In the Bring the Crunch DLC, he's even the massive focus of the very final battle that they ever did for any of these games.
And now I'm going to use him against you.
This is the end for you, Crunch.
But narratively, he plays an even bigger role. In Fractured But Whole, the gang is fighting over how to plan out their superhero franchise so that everyone involved is happy. It's what leads to their civil war and their rift. But the entire time, Dr. Timothy was working behind the scenes so that everybody could be happy.
Oh my God, he's figured it out.
It was Dr. Timothy's passion. He worked tirelessly on it.
A franchise plan that involved everyone. Each hero got their own movie and TV series. Every hero mathematically equal to the other.
I think this is a really fitting role in this narrative, given that Timmy has pretty often been shown to be concerned with others, even back to how he supported Skylar back in his first major episode with the Lords of the Underworld. And here, in his most recent and final major story in the franchise, his entire goal is to make sure that all of his friends can play together happily. A pretty great motivation for a pretty great character.
Timothy almost worked himself to death trying to come up with it.
Ultimately, Timmy rolled onto the scene and made waves in the show and in the fan base. And while I do think that he's maybe taken a bit of a backseat since his huge splash in Season 4, it's hard to argue that he isn't one of the most popular and consistent characters.
Yeah, Timmy.
Hopefully, Matt and Trey continue to give Timmy more substantial narratives in the show where he can really stand apart and shine. But I think we can all agree that Timmy is great.
God bless us, everyone.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.